What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. I'm your boy NarikChase, and in this video we are going to be reviewing Resident Evil 4. Now, Resident Evil 4 follows Special Agent Leon S. Kennedy, who is on a mission to rescue the U.S. President's daughter, Ashley Graham, who has been kidnapped by a religious cult in rural Spain. And this is hands down got to be one of the best Resident Evil video games in the franchise. And there's a lot that goes into this. Now, in terms of the plot, it's actually a really interesting, good plot. It's got a lot of good twists. Leon's on this adventure, on this awesome mission. He's dealing with all of these new types of bad guys. The enemy types are really interesting, and we get a very satisfying conclusion to this. Ultimately, it's the characters that do make this game work. Leon is presented to be a badass. He's really likable. He has great one-liners. He has really good moments. And it's not just him, it's also the supporting cast that actually make this a very interesting and a very, I guess you could say, engrossing story. Now, that's just not to say that it's just all about the enemies and stuff. Gameplay, atmosphere, setting, all of that stuff does take front row as well, but mostly it is the story and it is the characters. The supporting characters, we get some characters that are new, we get some returning from the original game, and it just makes for a very interesting and great experience. Now, I will say this. I've always had a gripe with the Resident Evil villains because I just felt like most of them were flat. They all have the same motivations. They all just feel very cookie cutter and flat. But I will admit that in this game, almost every major villain has personality. Yet they have some interesting quirks about them. The fights are actually really good. They're actually really memorable. And the banter between Leon and all of these villains just works in the game's favor. Also, I will say this. Hunnigan, who is Leon's handler, is one of my favorite characters. She's really, really awesome. And again, I do like that back and forth between the two characters. And this is a really good story, probably one of the best stories. Now, Resident Evil is originally steeped in horror. And this is what the game that kind of went into the more action or oriented gameplay, but it does it in a really good way. Think if Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 were Alien, then Resident Evil 4 is Aliens, balancing both horror and action. And I think that works to the game's favor. Now, going to the story, from the story to the gameplay is actually really good. It's got the third person over the shoulder. It works really good for the action oriented scenes, but it also works for the horror oriented scenes. And I guess it depends on your flavor, but to me it actually worked for both of them. I did like the overall atmosphere. I did like the AI. I thought the enemies were actually challenging in some way. Sometimes we weren't paying attention fighting these group of enemies, another one would sneak up on you. I do like the gameplay mechanics. The quick time events are okay, and I think that's probably the biggest gripe I have with the gameplay mechanics is the quick time events, but I think they're used sparingly enough so that way they don't deter from the game. Although there are some really cool ones, but we get a chance to counter and do execution type moves on enemies that are stunned and stuff like that, and I really do enjoy that aspect of the gameplay. It does harken back to you having to manage your resources, your weapons, your healing items, your ammo. You get to find treasure and gold, and you go to the merchant, who's probably one of the best characters in the entire series, to upgrade weapons and buy new weapons and items and stuff like that. Just the gameplay when it comes to Leon's moving, and I like the fact that you're not dodging anything really. You can do, run around and things like that. You can interact with the environment, jump out windows, open up doors, block windows and doors. And there's actually a really good sequence in the game where there's the siege on the house while you're inside. I think that's probably one of the best parts of the game. But ultimately, I do think the gameplay works. It really does work. Now, if we're looking for the production side of it, it's a very good looking game. Now, is it as polished now? No, but I still think it's part of that charm. The setting itself is this old, rusty, just rotted look to it, and I think that the graphics kind of actually feed into it then and now. The overall world is really engrossing. It's really deep. You can see far mountains and forests and things in the background. The castle setting, the what is that? The mining facility, like all of it is just a really rich looking world. There is a lot, there's stuff like going on in the distance, and I do appreciate that. Character models are creepy and really, really cool. The cutscenes are actually really, really cool. I do like the moments where we have the Leon conversing with other characters, both in person and across the little comm unit thing that he uses. Those are some of the best moments. Voice performances are really, really good. I can't remember the guy's name who nails the Leon character, but he does a fantastic job. In fact, supporting cast across the board is really, really good in the voice performances. There's a good amount of the score actually works for the game, both when it's not being utilized and when it is utilized. It's very creepy, very just dark, and it adds to the overall atmosphere of the game. There is a lot to the game that I haven't even touched upon, such as, you know, the unlockable content that's in the game, the DLC, Assignment Ada and Separate Ways, which are really, 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 really good. I do like, especially the Separate Ways, and maybe this is not a spoiler, but for those who haven't played, the Separate Ways is you you end up engaging with Ada Wong throughout the game, because she's the character that returns from Resident Evil 2 after she started dead. She comes back into this game, and Separate Ways is basically what she's doing the entire time Leon is on his campaign, and how they bump into each other and go their separate ways. Really, really cool. Just one of the see, when we're doing Resident Evil DLC, stuff like that just definitely hits the mark, and it definitely scratches those itches for us who are fans of the franchise and want to see more. But it's not without its flaws. But before I get into the flaws, I have to say the Las Plagas is a different thing from the typical zombies that we've seen in Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 0. And it's not a bad thing. They actually have personality. I like how they coordinate. They'll be able to use weapons against you. And it's awesome. It's a pretty good different shift while still hearkening to it. The Las Plagas creatures themselves, even when they're outside of the bodies, when they're within other animals and stuff like that, they're just a very diverse and unique elements that makes this game work. Now, getting to the negatives, honestly, there aren't that many. The biggest gripe that I have with the game is the main girl, Ashley. She's pretty useless, and I understand because she is a kid. But I think if the game would have been, and there are some moments where you do separate, and she does open like unlock a door or something for you, and you get actually play a good segment with her in this really creepy part of the castle. But I don't think she's utilized properly, and she's typically in the way. And we got games like BioShock Infinite where you got like Elizabeth who grabs ammo and tries to generally help you. I think they could have utilized those mechanics for Ashley as well. But having said that, Resident Evil 4 is a really good game. There's no wonder why people hail it as not only one of the best horror games, but one of the best Resident Evil games and one of the best games of all time, as well as, you know, what was it, fourth generation game, GameCube, PlayStation, Xbox. Look, everybody likes Resident Evil 4, and there's a good reason why. And outside of really that nitpick and possibly the QTEs, I think it's a really, really good game. I think it's the best game, and I think it'll definitely appeal to fans of both the action side of the Resident Evil franchise as well as the horror side. And I definitely say Resident Evil 4 deserves 5 out of 5. Alright then, guys, in the comment section below, let me know what did you think about Resident Evil 4. Have you played the game? You like the game? Who's your favorite villain? Sadler definitely is up there as one of my top 10 favorites. Uh, and it generally in fact, I gotta ask y'all two guys this too. The Verdugo. In fact, I'm not even gonna dive into that. I think it'll be a good, interesting thing to jump into. But also, not only who's your favorite villain, but what is your favorite enemy type in the game as well. So, in the comment section below, let me know what are your thoughts. And I'll definitely catch you guys later.